Welcome to another edition of the Jackson and Austin Show as we are here today to talk college football and we start with the most juicy ones of them all. We are in now the 2023-2024 New Year's Six bowl games, the best games of the year. And we are ready to talk it out and pick our winners and kind of talk it through as the best we can. But here today to help me out do that, I can't do it all by myself. I got the great man himself, the Bama man, Jackson. He's here to help me. Jackson, how are you on this fabulous night? And how much you looking forward to these New Year's Six bowl games?
Oh, I'm doing great, by the way. I am doing magnificent. Although I will say it's going to be fun watching a lot of these games, including the Peach Bowl, which we will get to in a little bit. So that's going to be one of my favorite ones. You got any faves there, Austin?
Yeah, there's a lot of good ones. I mean, the Peach Bowl, Ole Miss, Penn State, that sticks off the charts because it's two teams that we'll get into it have a history of choking when it counts the most. But
Yeah.
I also have to say, Missouri Ohio State could be a sneaky good game in the
Oh, that's
Cotton
gonna
Bowl, especially with
ooh.
Kyle McCord transferring to Syracuse and Marvin Harrison potentially opting out. Could get very sneaky. But, and speaking of it, we start off with the Goodyear Cotton Bowl is our first New Year's Six game we will preview and break down. You got the Missouri Tigers and the Ohio State Buckeyes. Missouri went 10-2, and Ohio State went 11-1, and that's how they got here. Jackson, give me your initial thoughts on seeing this matchup before we break it down even further.
I gotta be honest. I mean, none of us projected that this game was going to happen in the preseason. I mean, Missouri, they've been a tremendous team this year. I mean, they've surprised me. I mean, I figured they would go way better than sits and sits after that victory over Kansas State. I mean, people talk about how great Alabama Auburn was or how great Oklahoma Texas was this season. But I don't ever hear anybody talking about Missouri, Kansas State. I mean, that was a tremendous game winner, a game winning field goal. What a fantastic finish by Missouri against Kansas State. I mean, you would think you saw George Blanda and Adam Vinatieri reincarnated with that 61 yarder. And then oh man, it was just fantastic. And we see they had a pretty good game against Memphis, but oh boy, they kept it close with LSU earlier this year. I mean, that game was wow. But Kentucky, oh man, they shouldn't have messed with Missouri. I'll tell you that right now. I mean, South Carolina, they wish they didn't deal with Missouri, but they kept it close with the two-time national champ Georgia Bulldogs. Late the week after Georgia played Florida, but then we saw Missouri saying, "Hey, wait a minute. We may be out of the East Division, but we still got a shot at the New Year's Six, right?" Well, what do? They basically just get out the belt and spank Tennessee 36-7. It got pretty ugly real quick for the Vols. And then Missouri gets lucky against Florida a week later, but then they smack around Arkansas, thus clinching a shot at a New Year's Six bowl bid. Now we got this wonderful game between the Missouri Tigers and the Ohio State Buckeyes.
Yeah, it's going to be a really interesting game. And as you got that schedule pulled up, Jackson, I think for a lot of people, that Georgia game, even though they lost, opened up a lot of people's eyes like, hey, maybe Missouri's been a team of, oh, their schedule's been kind of soft other than Kansas State. They really haven't had to play anybody of significance. Georgia's going to be our first look at how actual good they are. And Jackson, if Brady Cook doesn't turn the ball over late, Missouri could pull off an upset, and Missouri could be potentially in the SEC champion. Could have been in the SEC championship game, but as they say, woulda, coulda, shoulda. But
Yeah.
Missouri, had a great year. They went 10-2, and they're in a bowl, a New Year's Six bowl, and that's nothing to be ashamed of. Eli Drinkwitz, who had all the hot seat talk at the beginning of the year, I think cooled his seat big time,
Oh
big
yeah,
time. Now
yeah. I mean,
I will say though, I have to be honest with you. Me and Jackson, we both did SEC previews at the beginning of the year on my channel, and we predicted Missouri to go 3-9. And that's one that we look back on and say, if we could do that one over, that would be nice. But it's our
I
prediction.
taught this man into predicting 3-9. So if anybody wants to come at anybody about the bad Missouri prediction, come at me. Don't come at Austin.
It's all good, Jackson. It's a part of the predictions. And I didn't believe in Missouri, but they have the talent, they have the weapons, and I think they could keep it close with Ohio State. But you look at this from the Ohio State perspective, Jackson. They went 11-1, and for a lot of Buckeyes fans, this was a disappointment. They're
True.
like, "Oh, this is a disappointment. We should be playing for the Natty in the playoffs, but you couldn't get it done against Michigan again." And a lot of Buckeyes fans want to blame Kyle McCord for it. They're like, it's his fault that we didn't win the Big Ten and we're not in the playoffs. Listen, Ohio State fans, Kyle McCord, he had a defender right in his face when he threw that. Most quarterbacks would throw a pick right there. Most. Kyle McCord's not Tom Brady. So let's take a chill pill now. And it's one of those things. It's like it's like the Notre Dame game, Jackson, for Ohio State. One of their better wins. Wins. A lot of people were like, "What did that win do for us in essence?" Because it didn't help us with the committee or anything, other than it just showed that we're still better than Notre Dame. Well, you look at it, Jackson. What if they would have lost that Notre Dame game? Would they have still made a New Year's Six bowl? Because look at their schedule. It's
Mhm.
putrid. Other than Penn
Oh, it's
State, other than Penn State, Jackson, besides Notre Dame, what's their best win?
that's a good question right there. Besides Notre Dame and Penn State, I'm gonna have to say, hmm, I guess
Maryland?
Maryland, Wisconsin, Western Kentucky. Well, I mean, that Western Kentucky looks good. Win looks good, especially after that famous Toastery Bowl comeback victory against Old Dominion.
Yes. And for you, those of you who are hearing Jackson talk about this, we are recording on a Monday night. So that's why you hear that now
True.
when we release this. But yeah, you look at it, Jackson, the totality of it. If they didn't get the Notre Dame and Penn State win, who knows what Ohio State where they would be at. Jackson, there'd be potential they would not be in a New Year's Six bowl, possibly. Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe. Don't want to go too crazy because
Uh, I
they
think
are
they
Ohio State.
still would. I think they still would be in a New Year's Six Bowl because of their blue blood status. But if they weren't known as Ohio State football or anybody else that's not a blue blood, they'd have been yeeted off the New Year's Six. They'd be thrown out like Jazz from the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air.
And true. And Jackson, one of the biggest storylines that is going to be interesting for this game is Kyle McCord has transferred to Syracuse, which all hope and luck to him. Good luck in the ACC. We'll be seeing you down the road, Mr. McCord. Get ready. You're going to get to see a heavy dose of Jeff Brom, but that's neither here nor there. But
Right.
Jackson, how do you think that impacts Ohio State's chances? Especially if Marvin Harrison Jr. opts out. You'll be down your starting wide receiver and your quarterback. What's your take on
Well, I
that?
mean, I think they're going to be fine on the quarterback play because we're going to wait and see with Devin Brown. I got a feeling he's going to be a little better than McCord, but I guess we'll wait and see on that. But you're going to have Emeka Egbuka at receiver, although we don't know whether he's opting out yet, but we'll know for sure. But it's like this man Austin said, this is recorded on a Monday, so if you see it 2 days later and 3 days later, and you're like, "Wait a minute, why didn't you report on that?" "Well, this is pre-recorded, that's why." Fourth wall break.
Yeah, giving away our magic tricks here. We're recording on a Monday night, so
We're breaking the
but
fourth wall, ladies and gentlemen. We are breaking the fourth wall.
yeah. but but I will say though, Jackson, Julian Fleming, him going to the transfer portal, that's a big loss for Ohio State too. He's a really good slot receiver. I think his presence is going to be missed. But if Marvin Harrison plays, I think it can make up for a lot of things for Ohio State. But the big question is if he plays or not. Because if he doesn't play, this opens up the whole the whole book of worms. And I have to say, Missouri, I don't believe they had anybody opt out yet, have they, Jackson? As we are recording
Yeah, I was
tonight.
gonna say, nobody at Missouri is gonna opt out of playing against Ohio State. You are not gonna see anybody opting out of playing against a blue blood. That's just not gonna happen. You're just not.
And I will say Jackson, with that being said, my biggest thing for this before we get into our winners here, Jackson, I would like to know in your opinion, what would it take for Missouri to win this game? In your opinion, what's their key to victory?
Oh man, they'll have to make sure they got it going on offense. That's for sure. They're gonna have to put a stop to the passing game from Ohio State. They're gonna have to put a stop to Emeka Egbuka and Marvin Harrison Jr. if those guys are playing. But if those guys are not playing, well, you just gotta make sure you take control of that receiving core. You do that, you are good to go.
And I think one key thing for Missouri before we get into our pick here, I think one key thing for Ohio State, excuse me, one key thing is they need to establish an early ground game to help the young quarterback Devin Brown out if he is the one getting the nod in this game. Travion Henderson, I believe he is still playing in this game. I do believe. Correct me if I'm wrong. He's going to be a big help. He's a 1,000-yard running back. He has potential to break things loose in a hurry, almost like a Christian McCaffrey, Kenneth Walker type back. If Ohio State gets the running game going, get some easy completions for Brown, they can win this game, and their defense just has to slow down that Missouri offense.
True.
But with 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 all that being said, though, Jackson, I'll let you pick this game first. Who do you got, and what's your prediction? Who's taking the Cotton Bowl home?
Well, I will say though, another stat that I noticed that Missouri has is that they lead the nation in red zone offense. So they can capitalize on the red zone against the Ohio State red zone defense. They will be good to go. That will help them against Ohio State. But I do I do concede to the fact that I don't think Missouri's going to win. It's going to be a bad day for them. And I say this will be Ohio State 35-24.
Yeah. Jackson, I agree with you on this game. I'm going Ohio State 31-24. 31-24, Ohio State wins. Whether Marvin Harrison plays or not, I still think they have too much firepower for Missouri right now. I'm taking the Buckeyes. But on to our next game.
Well, we got ourselves the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl, but I wonder one thing, Austin.
What's that, Jackson?
That whoever wins this game, I wonder if they're going to douse the winning coach with Chick-fil-A sauce or Chick-fil-A honey mustard sauce. Wonder if that's going to happen, but
oh good Lord. I hope for their sake, Jackson, if they do, they take a nice long shower to get the stains out of their shirts. Anywho, you got the Ole Miss Rebels against the Penn State Nittany Lions in the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl. both teams finished the season at 10-2. And Jackson, you are very familiar with Ole Miss because Alabama plays them on an annual just about every year. So you've got a good look at them just about every year. Talk to the people, Jackson, that haven't seen some Ole Miss football, what this team could do well and what they cannot do well.
Well, I've looked at Ole Miss, and they've done pretty well in the passing offense, and they finished at 26 in the season. And the running game, I was looking at the Ole Miss running game, and it's just been kind of meh compared to other schools. But Penn State's running game has been tremendous. It's at 24th in the nation, and it's just the thing about Ole Miss is they are the Penn State of the SEC. Everybody talks about how Penn State can't win a big game, but Ole Miss cannot win the big game. Yeah, they won against LSU, but they couldn't get it done against Alabama, Georgia. And Lane Kiffin, we've seen that he cannot win the bowl games. Yeah, he won it in his first year, but he couldn't win the Sugar Bowl in his second year, and he couldn't win the Texas Bowl against Texas Tech. Is history going to repeat itself for Ole Miss, or will they win the Peach Bowl and use that to catapult on a upcoming 2024 season with an amazing class on the transfer portal and a schedule without Alabama?
I will say though, Jackson, that's going to be interesting, especially for Ole Miss. But another interesting thing is Penn State. They're 10-2, and Jackson. The old story goes they always lose to Ohio State and Michigan. Well, guess who they lost to, Jackson? Ohio
Yep.
State and Michigan again. I mean, Jackson, one of these years, Penn State's going to get one of them for Christ's sakes. I mean, they can't keep losing, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think they'll get over that hump at some point, like maybe next year or year after. I mean, Penn State, they're not going to have Michigan next year, so that's going to help them quite a bit. And we know Ole Miss isn't going to have Bama next year. That's going to help them quite a lot. But
Mm-hmm.
Jackson Dart, I am curious to see how he does in this game. Man, he's had a pretty good season. 2,985 passing yards, 20 touchdowns. And we see Quinshot Judkins, he's had 1,052 yards and 15 touchdowns. He's
Jackson,
been tremendous.
Jackson, I would like to bring up part of the interruption, but Quinshawn Junkins, I think he's the reason Ole Miss has had such a successful year. He makes that offense run so much smoother for Jackson Dart because Jackson, just imagine if they didn't have that running game,
Oh,
what
no.
their record could be.
Oh, Lord. They'd be in trouble. They would be in huge amounts of trouble.
Because Jackson, if you look at their schedule, they played Alabama this year, Georgia, LSU. I mean, those three right there are almost impossible task. They went on the road to Bama and Georgia. And the fact, Jackson, that looking at it now, that they almost beat Alabama, the team that's in the playoffs. This says something about Lane Kiffin. Maybe he's finally turning the corner. And they got a big win over LSU. And we talked about them the other night in our latest video predictions on the rest of them on New Year's Six. LSU had a terrible defense, no excuse. But Jaden Daniels won the Heisman, had a fantastic year, and that Ole Miss win is looking real good now over LSU. And as for Penn State, as for Penn State, Jackson, help me out here. What's Penn State's best win? I'm sorry, Penn State fans. I'm not meaning to be rude, but good Grisha Mahdi.
Well, Iowa's a great win. I mean, they got that Iowa win on CBS Saturday night.
But Jackson, it's Iowa. I get it. Iowa went to the Big Ten championship. Don't get me wrong. I ain't discrediting Penn State. If you just look at their schedule, Jackson, they're just plain old boring Penn State. They're beating all the teams they should, and they can't beat the two biggest teams on their schedule, and it's very frustrating. Don't get me wrong. Iowa's a great win, like you said, but it's Iowa. Iowa has no offense. If you can't beat Iowa, you're in trouble. Like, Penn
Yeah.
State should essentially run them off the field, and they did.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they also got that pretty good win against West Virginia, which is looking better by the day. And imagine if West Virginia beats North Carolina in the Duke Mayo Bowl. That'll look even better right there. I mean, that Northwestern victory, who'd have thought that would be a great victory in the long run?
Yeah, we gave our props to Northwestern when we talked about their bowl game. We had no clue Northwestern was going to be this good, this quick with David Braun. I mean, 7-5. Give him all credit in the world, which we did. Go check it out on our first preview video of these bowl games. We gave Northwestern all the love they can handle. Don't you guys worry. But to this game here, I will say, Jackson, the Illinois win at the time I thought was a good win, but it turns out Illinois was not so good at the end.
Yeah. No, it wasn't. But
But
there
I
is
will,
something good that Penn State has, and it's going to be especially good against that Ole Miss running game. Penn
yeah,
State, Penn State leads the nation in rushing yards allowed per game. They do not mess around when it comes to the running game on offense. They will smack it down like a chicken nugget.
I will say though, Jackson, the one thing that concerns me is if Ole Miss can get pressure on Drew Aller, how good's the Penn State offense going to be? Because we've seen what happens when Penn State doesn't have their running game. Drew Aller tends to come up short. Ohio State and Michigan put in those blitz packages and kind of disguised some coverages and made some big time plays on defense that Drew Aller and that offense kind of sputtered. If you look at the final scores, 20-12 against Ohio State, State, State only putting up 12 points for a team that's been putting up a buttload of points the weeks previous, and then against Michigan 24-15, that's just not going to get it done. And with Penn State's offense being putrid against those two big teams, that's very concerning. This is why I'm very concerned for Penn State. As for Ole Miss, on the other hand, Jackson, their offense has been humming, and then they ran into what we thought was going to be a dynasty in Georgia. But it turns out Alabama says, not on our watch. This is still our house. But
Yeah.
we'll get to Alabama later. We'll get to them at a later date. Don't you worry. But as for this game here, I will say one of the biggest keys for Penn State is they got to get their running game going, and they got to get pressure on Jackson Dart if they want a chance. They just got to, and maybe create a turnover or two. Jackson, what is your key to the game for Ole Miss to get the W?
Oh man, they're gonna have to make sure they keep relying on Quinshad Judkins, and they gotta make sure Jackson Dart can have a good day, and they gotta put a lot of pressure on Drew Aller. Put Make sure they stop the Penn State running game. They do that, they are good to go because Penn State is 90th on passing offense. It's not a good look for Penn State.
Yeah. If Penn State gets the running game going, Jackson, Ole Miss may have a long day on defense. But Jackson, I think I'm ready to make my pick. I'm ready whenever you are with that.
You go
Are we
for
ready
it,
to give her?
man. You go for that pit, man.
So I'm gonna go after everything we've just talked about. I'm gonna pick a Ole Miss win, 31-28. Ole Miss is gonna win it by a field goal. Jackson, your pick.
You're gonna go with the Ole Miss Rebels, huh?
I'm going Ole Miss. What about you, good buddy?
Well, I just gotta tell you, Not so fast, my friend. I gotta go with Penn State. I'm going with those Nittany Lions. I think they can get the job done. That rushing defense is going to be a bad day for Quinshad Judkins.
That is fair. We split on that pick out there to our viewers. Let's see if we split on this next pick. Oh boy.
Oh, man. This is going
This
to be
is
a
gonna
great one.
Yes, this is gonna be a juicy game. A lot of storylines. Cannot wait. And Florida State fans, I know they're chomping at the bit at this to show ESPN and the CFP committee that they made the wrong decision. But
Oh, yeah.
Jackson, you recently had a couple Florida State people on your podcast, The Jacksonian. Go check it out. Great stuff. Jackson, what was their overall thoughts going about drawing Georgia and just getting left out? Were they upset or they like, this is an opportunity to prove that we're one of the four best teams?
I had George from the Renegade Report, George Georgitis from the Renegade Report, and I had on Richie Baker, the co-host of Double Fries No Slaw, in two of the past episodes. Check it out. They were not too thrilled. I mean, they basically were like, tell me, apparently this was in the works, and ESPN was basically lobbying, and I'll repeat, lobbying for Florida State to not be considered, even before the Jordan Travis injury. And when he got hurt, ESPN, Jesse Palmer was basically saying they're gonna have to run up score against Louisville. I was like, how do you know that, bro? I mean, and we also went over how Greg Sankey went on the College Game Day hours before the SEC title game saying, please let there be an SEC team. I mean, we haven't had an SEC team left out of the playoffs, and it's not going to start now. And it was just, and that basically blew my mind. And I went over it with Richie and George, how the lobbying just bugged us. I mean, I may be a Bama fan, but I'm not going to do anybody dirty like that. I'll make sure of that. I'll make sure that I'm clean and fair with everyone. That's part of, if I get part of a playoff committee like that, I'm going to take it hella seriously for sure. And keep everybody honest. Because I'll tell you right now, it was just dirty what was done to Florida State. And Jordan Travis, felt like it was his fault. He was like, if I had gotten hurt earlier in the season, Florida State wouldn't be left out. And I'm like, no, it's not your fault. ESPN did a massive screw job on you and your university, man. And I mean, Florida State, man, they have been so mad about this. They've been talking about joining the Big Ten. They've been talking about, oh, well, I guess we're going to join the Big Ten. We're not joining the SEC. We're going to join the Big Ten. It was just terrible, man. And I didn't think about this at the time, but I was thinking about where Kirk Herbstreit was just jumping like a little kid when Alabama made the game-winning touchdown against Auburn with that Isaiah Bond catch on 4th and goal, at that long 4th and goal. And honestly, I didn't think about it. I was like, okay, maybe he's just like a secret Bama fan. He's pulling for my Crimson Tide. But I didn't think it was anything more than that. It was just, I didn't even think about it like that, because it was I told it to George. I didn't think that he was doing anything. Let me tell you, Florida State fans are not too thrilled with Kirk Herbstreit. They are not too happy.
But I will say though, Jackson, Florida State fans, here's your opportunity. It's Georgia, Florida State, in the Capital One Orange Bowl, December 30th, primetime stage. Florida State, go show the world, go show that committee that you belonged and that you're here to stay. This is your chance because you're playing their golden children, as we like to say. And We're going to see how good Florida State truly is because I believe Georgia has not really that many opt outs. I don't think. I know Carson Beck plans on playing. I believe Brock Bowers is going to play. I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong, Jackson. So Georgia's going to be at full strength the best they can. So this is going to be interesting. And Tate Watermaker, he will probably be the starting quarterback in this game. So
Yeah.
this is going to be a very interesting game. I will say though, Jackson, we're talking about Florida State and how they got screwed and stuff. That's not the only side to this story. You got the
True.
Georgia Bulldogs, the defending back-to-back two-time
But
national champions, but they are no longer champions, Jackson. We will crown a new champion on January 8th in Houston. We will get to that at a later date. But Jackson, what is your thoughts on Georgia failing to do what only a very few teams have ever done, and that is three-peat and make history?
well, I mean, nobody has three-peated in college football since the Minnesota Golden Gophers in the 1930s. You know, USC tried to three-peat in 2005. They couldn't get it done. Alabama tried to three-peat in 2013. They couldn't get it done. And Alabama tried getting it done in 1980. They couldn't get it done. Tried to in 1966. They got screwed out of a shot out of the national championship for a third straight year in 1966. But that's a backstory for another day. But I will say, this has been another tremendous season for the Georgia Bulldogs. But it's sad that they're not going to get a shot at three-peating, but they got some good news. Carson Beck is returning next year.
That'll help out big time for Georgia, especially. He showed a lot of growth. And Jackson and Georgia, to a little foreshadowing, if all stays the way it is, they will kick off the season against the Clemson Tigers, which will be a big time game to watch. So we're going to see what Georgia's made of next year. But that's next year. For this game here, I think it's going to be very interesting because you've got the SEC versus the ACC, and a lot of people assume the SEC is just the better team because they are the SEC and it's just that. Florida State, they are a great football team. I got to watch them firsthand all year, and I got to see it firsthand. I mean, what they did to Jack Plummer and our offense, shutting us down, holding us to 6 points, holding us under 200 yards, it was something to watch. And it's just one of those things. It's one of those things. But I will say, Florida State does have some opt outs, so it is going to be interesting. Johnny Wilson, I believe, has opted out, right, Jackson?
Yeah, I believe so. He is not playing in the Orange Bowl.
So it does make for an interesting game, but Jackson, I'll let you take this one. What is the biggest key if Georgia wants to win this game, other than just throw it to Brock Bowers and get out of the way?
Oh, man. Man, they are going to have to do so much. I mean, they got to make sure they got that red zone game going. That is for sure. They got to get that running game going against Florida State. Because, I mean, I'm looking at Georgia's running game, and it is 40th in the nation. That's not good. That is not good compared to other teams. But we look at the rushing defense, and we see that Florida State, they don't seem to be doing so hot because they're 40th in the nation on the running game. But Georgia, they'll have to make sure they get that running game on defense a little higher than 27th, especially on a day like December 30th on the Orange Bowl on ESPN.
Yeah. And one of the biggest things, Jackson, one of the biggest keys of Florida State wants to get this job done is they got to put pressure on Carson Beck. Their front four have got to get home, get Carson Beck to the ground. They got to force a couple turnovers, and they got to make sure they keep Tate Watermaker upright. They can't let that Georgia defense go head hunting. They can't let them get feasting because Jackson, as you know very well from watching Georgia in the SEC championship against your boys at Alabama, Tate Watermaker's got to be a little mobile, get out of the pocket, throw some slants, some screens, maybe a little crossers, get something to get this defense thinking. Georgia, if they get to sacking you and getting turnovers, you could call it a night. You can really you might as well just give up right there because Georgia's hard to beat when they play that good. But Jackson, if you'd like to add anything else, go for it. But if not, who is your pick for this game, and who do you got?
Well, before I make my pick on this game, I would like to show a tweet from Blue Blood Bias where he says it's official. Florida State will be recognized as national champs if they beat Georgia. Here's how. The NCAA currently recognizes 10 different sets of rankings to crown a national champ of football. One of these 10 is the Colley Matrix, the computer ranking, which ranked Central Florida number 1 in 2017 and awarded them the national championship. Florida State currently has a very realistic chance of finishing number 1 in the Colley, and thus will be recognized by the NCAA as a joint national champion. To accomplish this, the following results must occur. Florida State beats Georgia, Alabama beats Michigan, Texas beats Washington, Bama beats Texas in the national championship. If these results occur, Alabama would have to share the national championship with the Seminoles via Reddit College Football.
I mean, I don't even know where to go with that. This sounds like UCF all over again, good buddy.
I'm all right with sharing the natty with Florida State if this happens. I mean, that would be cool. So because it's like I'm so mad that they got screwed like this. It's just not cool what happened to them. And if I were in that committee, I know I'd have a lot more spine than Boo Kerrigan, the NC State AD. I mean, that's another guy we talked about when I had on Richie Baker and George Georgitis. We talked about Boo Kerrigan and Jim Grobe and how nobody in the ACC had Florida State's back. They just kind of stood by and did nothing. I mean, none of the coaches, the ADs, they just sat on their butts, did nothing. They were just waiting for an order or something. I don't know. But unfortunately, this is not the business of how we feel. And reluctantly, I have to go with the Georgia Bulldogs to beat Florida State 35-27.
Yeah, I'm with you, Jackson. I'm going Georgia as well. They still have too much talent. Florida State's had some big opt-outs on the offensive side of the ball. I think Georgia's defense gets the Rodemaker a couple times. I got Georgia 38-24. I'm going Bulldogs to get the W.
Wow.
Sorry, Florida State. I'll be rooting for you for the pride of the ACC, but Georgia, they're just levels above you right now.
But
even with Jordan Travis.
But on the bright side, everybody watching this can tell we're not hiding how we truly feel about. We're just kind of like, we reluctantly picked Georgia on this one, but we're pulled for you all the way, Florida State.
Mm-hmm. And then
now kick some ass, Seminoles.
But on to the Verbo Fiesta Bowl, the last of the NY6 bowls, because the other two will be college football playoff bowls, and we will record those at a later time and later date and get those out to you. So don't worry. Jackson will be put on the hot seat. I will question him and I will make him pick between Alabama and Michigan. Don't you worry. We're going to put him on the hot seat. But as of right now, this is the final
Oh,
one.
that's easy. That's Bama.
This is the final one. The verbal
Spoiler alert! Spoiler alert!
As Jackson gives a spoil for our later recordings, the Verbal Fiesta Bowl. You've got Oregon against Liberty. And, this has got some controversy around it too, especially from my good co-host up here. I'm sure Jackson will go on a rant about this here in a minute. How Liberty kind of, with their pitiful schedule, as we like to call things, snuck into this group of 5 bowl New Year's 6 clinching spot. Jackson, I know you're a big believer that it should have been SMU, but take it away, good buddy. I'll let you explain.
Like, I'm trying not to get sick looking at Liberty's schedule. I mean, it's just so freaking pitiful. I mean, I get it. New Mexico State is a pretty good win. Western Kentucky's a great win. I mean, Old Dominion, oh, God. I don't even want to look at Old Dominion. I mean, Louisiana Tech. I mean, Jacksonville State's a pretty good win. But we're not looking at Buffalo with Lance Leipold. We're not. It's just, I mean, they did beat a Bowling Green team, but no Power Fives. That's bad.
Well, Jackson, they are the non-Power 5, so
I don't give a rat's behind. I mean, you need to play at least a tougher game. Good grief. I mean, I know you were just leaving the FBS independency, but come on. Don't get rid of your tougher games.
I mean, Jackson, they went unbeaten. They won their conference, and they're getting rewarded for it. But I will say, on a brighter note, though, Jamey Chadwell, what a job he has done.
Exactly.
Great job from Jamey Chadwell coming from Coastal Carolina over to Liberty. A lot of people were thinking that was a lateral move in the offseason, and we discussed it in previous videos with a couple other guys, Will and D and Jeffrey, and we said, that's kind of a lateral move. Maybe it's not as good, but look, he took Liberty to an NY6 Bowl, and congratulations to him. Hopefully many more years of success. Jackson, I know you want to tout his praises. Go ahead.
I will say, though, I've been surprised that a Power 5 school hasn't looked at Jamey Chadwell. I mean, I think one of these days we're going to see a team like North Carolina open up, and they're going to go, hey, Jamey Chadwell, would you like to take the head coaching opportunity in Chapel Hill? What do you say? All you have to do is get a 10-win season, and you get a contract extension.
Very, very true. Very true. And it is very interesting that his name hasn't been thrown around more. But maybe if he somehow upsets Oregon, maybe his name can get thrown around a little more. But unfortunately for Liberty, Jackson, they're going up against Oregon, and Bo Nix will be playing in this game.
This game, honestly, has 2008 Sugar Bowl vibes written all over it, where Hawaii got smacked around by Georgia, and they basically had their feelings hurt after that game. I'm not seeing 2007 Fiesta Bowl vibes on this game. There's not gonna be.
Now I will say,
I just feel like it's gonna be a horrible day for Liberty.
And Jackson, you want to know something else? Vegas agrees with us, because as of right now, Liberty is a 17.5-point underdog. I mean, if that doesn't tell you how bad of an odd, even Vegas is like, don't bet on this game. Like, bet on this game, excuse me. Like, and you look at Oregon. Oregon is a 17-point favorite, not 17.5 now. It's changed. And they should be, Jackson. I mean, they're the Pac-12 champions, runner-ups, almost won. They went 11-2 with a lot of great wins. Bo Nix is going to play in this game. Troy Franklin, Dan Lanning is going to have his guys ready. They don't want a USC to happen. What I mean by that is Jackson's boys at Tulane last year with Willie Fritz stunned the Trojans. They don't want that on their resume. Yeah. I mean, we're trying to make this sound interesting, but Liberty, we're trying to make it sound interesting, but unfortunately, I think Oregon is going
I
to
wish
spank
it was
them.
Oregon SMU. I mean, SMU had a tougher non-con schedule, man. I mean, it's just I get that they lost to a pitiful TCU team, and I get that they lost to Oklahoma, but still though, they got a pretty good schedule, and they won the AAC, a conference title for the first time since the 80s, and their first legitimate conference title since 1966. I mean, you gotta give SMU some credit.
But
I don't
Jackson,
want to know what that New Year's Six commission offered, and I don't even think I want to know. But definitely something in the back room. I can guarantee you that.
but Jackson, it's Liberty, Oregon, and the Fiesta Bowl. I think we've said all we need to say. I mean, Jackson, if you want to give a silver lining, what does Liberty need to do to have a chance to maybe stun the world and pull off the upset?
Oh God, they are gonna have to put a stop to Bo Nix. They're gonna have to put a stop to the passing core. They're just gonna have to do everything basically. They gotta stop that running game for sure. I mean, they gotta use that running game on the Oregon defense, especially because Liberty has the best rushing offense in the nation. So they're gonna have to utilize all that.
Yeah, I and for Oregon, it's just play Oregon football. Play the way you played it all year long. Control the line of scrimmage. Keep Bo Nix protected, and you should have a field day out there. But that's just Oregon's keys to victory.
Do
But the
not let your
question,
parents
oh,
that
go,
are watching this, don't let your kids watch this game. It's too violent. Your children do not need to see any bad images, man.
and I must say before we
Bang.
make our picks, Jackson, I think we're both going Oregon. I could be wrong. You could surprise me. My question is, does Liberty cover?
Oh, do you mean is it gonna be on Bad Beats with Scott Van Pelt? No.
So Liberty's not going to cover the 17 points. But
Not no, but hell no.
But I'll let Jackson give his pick here in just a second. I'm going to go Oregon to win 37-20. 37-20. Oregon wins over Liberty. I'll be nice and give Liberty 20 points. Maybe they get a couple garbage time touchdowns because the Ducks feel bad for them. I'll go 37-20 Oregon. Jackson, please tell me you ain't gone cuckoo.
Oh, I'm not that nice. I'm going 49-24 Oregon Donald Ducks, man.
And with that, that includes our NY6 predictions. Let us know down in the comments of our channels which ones are you looking forward to the most, which games are you think it could be sleepers, could be, underrated ones. Tell us all about it. While you're at it, leave us a like, leave us a comment, subscribe, click on that notification bell because we're doing great work over here at the Jacksonian and Sports Talk with Austin. But before we get out of here, Jackson, let the people know where they can find you and let people know what you've got going on your side of the fence. Fence, good buddy.
Well, they can find me on Twitter at Jackson909960335 and at Instagram and Threads at JacksonJohnson543908, where I just kind of run my mouth about college football and NFL and the other sports, pop culture, and all that sort of stuff. But I also give some of my latest updates on the latest episodes of the Jacksonian, and I release clips on Twitter here and there. But I also have full episodes of the Jacksonian right here on youtube.com/ at JacksonJohnson979, where, this channel is doing its best to gain to 500 subs. It's 240 subs away. Get there. It's going to be a fantastic journey right there. And then we're going to get to 1,000, 2,000, 5,000, 10,000, so on and so forth. And I will say, though, I also do some college football and NFL videos. Well, such as this. And let me tell you, it's fun right over here. But my good buddy Austin has some awesome stuff over on Sports Talk with Austin. Where can the people find you, my good friend?
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter and you can find me on Sports Talk with Austin 2002. We just passed 25 subscribers. Thank you guys for all the thank you guys for subscribing and believing in me. Looking forward to putting out more great content. I'm going to be recording tomorrow night with Jeffrey from When We Talk Sports as we talk the Duke's Mayo Bowl and talk about Drake May opting out. Can Carolina possibly send Mac Brown off with a win? If it is his swan song, who knows? And I will also be putting out videos of mine and Jackson's previews of other bowl games like the Wasabi Fenway Bowl, obviously the Music City Bowl, the Gator Bowl, all those and more. You can find me on Twitter at awilliams 1980 2639, and at Sports Talk with Austin. Great stuff coming your way. Looking forward to it. And me and Jackson, we will be back recording at a later date to talk Alabama, Michigan, Washington, Texas, preview, break down those games, give our predictions, and then we will predict who wins the Natty from there.
And it's going to be a wild ride. Let me tell you that right now, ladies and gentlemen, and everybody else in the back room. It's going to be fantastic. Until next time, this is Jackson Johnson and my good buddy Austin Williams. And we wish you a good night. Sleep well, stay safe, and stay warm. It's cold out.
Go Cards, everybody.